Inspire, host, create, explore endless new possibilities, next level broadcasting. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so many more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Welcome back to Teachable Moments with April podcast. I am your host, April. Good afternoon, Miss Mary. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine today. How about yourself, Miss April?
I'm doing good. So we're going to start with the first topic, which is dirty weave. What are your thoughts about dirty weave, Miss Mary?
Oh, I think anything that makes a person feel good about themselves. I have nothing against it whatsoever. I do have a few key questions I would like to ask, or at least have a comment on with the weave. The length of the weave. I don't see how they can function too well with with hair all the way down your back.
Yeah, what I call the Rapunzel is like down to their butt,
right,
or knees, the back of their knees, or down to their ankles.
And it's 90 degrees weather out there. Mm-hmm. And the second thing about the weave I don't understand is, did they get an instruction from the person that applied this weave to the hair, or how to care for it, dry clean it, wash it with soap and water or shampoo or whatever? But it seems like they got the weave on, which is an enormous amount of money. I'm sure it is, but there's no care given to it. And when I'm in the store or wherever I'm shopping doing my errand, I never paid that much attention to elderly people when I was young. I was too busy in my own world. These young ladies especially, they love to get in front of you and swing it back and forward in your direction. And it seemed like they're looking for some kind of comment from you. And when you don't respond, they seem like they get an attitude with you because you didn't respond to them and their weave. Their weave is for you. It's not for me. I wear natural hair. I do not have any weave. Like I said, I have nothing against. That's what you do. I used to wear wigs, and I didn't care about other people. I just thought this would look good on me, and I was styling. Okay, now I just wear my regular hair, and I'm happy with that. But I don't understand the concept of the dirty weave and no maintenance.
Right. Well, I think, like you're saying, they're doing it for a variety of reasons, and one of them should be, I'm not here to dictate what people should like and what they do it for, and I know you're not either, is to do it for themselves. They like it, it makes them feel good, it boosts their confidence, so forth and so on. But I think it's a little lost in translation. I know a lot of times people that are influencers and celebrities, they wear different types of hair, different units, like you say, wigs, lace front wigs, all kinds of different types of all types of hair that's out there, and they're all very beautiful. But they also have stylists, and they have people who style it and take care of it. But the basics is what you're talking about, and I understand completely. Even the celebrities, whether it be celebrity stylists, the whole glam squad, you have to, like with all things, you have to wash it and you have to take care of it. And I think that's a step or steps that they have skipped over. Those steps they've totally skipped over or jumped over, and then their hair is matted. It is clearly, it's truly dirty. You don't know what's in it. I know whenever you wear wigs or for long term, because some people get them installed and they keep them on for a certain amount of time, you're going to have itching, you're going to have different things because it's something, you know, on top of your natural hair, and it's going to itch. But these young ladies, I've seen them on public transportation, I've seen them in stores, and you're getting really freaked out a little bit, like you start tossing it and start really getting up underneath that bad brother, and then you're like, whoa. And recently, me and Miss Mary went somewhere. I'm not necessarily this particular person. At Rainbow, I didn't really see if she had I don't think she had a unit on, a wig or whatever, but she was not exactly clean. And you could smell her before you saw her, and then she kept looking at us. It was a different way of how it kind of takes away from the hair, but it's like kind of knew that she wasn't on top of her hygiene game, but she kept looking at us, and I feel like she wanted us to respond to her, kind of like what you're saying with people with the dirty weave and the dirty hair. And wanting, I think it goes along with the mentality of whatever's going around with people and their mental health, and they want you to respond, and I think they want a negative response so that they can go off and start screaming and carrying on. But we basically just kind of stepped away from her. I could feel her still looking and staring at us, waiting for something, and I thought that was kind of, well, how did you feel about that, Miss Mary?
Not only was the young lady there, her mother was there as well. She was wearing some very short shorts. I don't know what they call them these days, Daisy Dukes or whatever. Mm. And her grandmother, she went and gave her baby to her grandmother because the baby was kept crying.
Oh, okay.
And the lady that works in the Rainbow asked her how old was the baby. She said the baby was 2 weeks old.
That was another thing that Miss Mary was like,
I don't think she should have been wearing Daisy Dukes with a 2 week, that's it, Daisy Dukes at a 2 week old baby.
Yeah.
She hadn't washed her body, it don't seem like she hadn't washed her hair or anything, but she seemed like she needed some kind of response. I agree with April. She seemed like she wanted, since we were well groomed, I'm thinking she wanted us to say something negative so her and her mom could go off and start an argument, but I'm for peace. Mm-hmm. She was in the store, I was in the store.
Yeah.
We were in the store, so what can I say?
Yeah, you feel that kind of energy, not just the lack of hygiene, but like you feel we've talked about this before, the malice that people feel, and they keep, I know when we were looking, it was some particular things that we went there to look for, and, you know, trying to catch them sales and clearance and stuff like that. And it's like they followed us from rack to rack, and then they followed us up to the front. That was another thing, and it was just like this never ending when I would look up to say something to Miss Mary, you know, like, did she find anything? Did you find, you know, I was looking in her face or her mother's face or whoever else was with them, and she had her phone, but every time I would look, she'd be looking dead up at, like, staring at me, and I was like, okay. So it's fine, people look. Of course, looking is different than staring, but I said, there's something else going on here, and I tried to put distance because of how people act. It doesn't take a lot for them.
And the way she was smelling.
Right, that was that and everything, but I guess if that's the case, maybe it wouldn't put you in a really good mood at all. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is something that I saw. It was about homeschooling, and I didn't know this, and I was asking Miss Mary about that. Did she know that a large proportion of African American families had, before the pandemic as well as to now, had pulled their children? Because I kept asking Miss Mary, and it was a former co-worker. And when we came out of the quarantine, I'm putting the pieces together, she had noticed that a lot of African American kids weren't returning to school. And me and her, this particular coworker, were talking, and she has school age kids, more so high school. And I think her youngest will be graduating soon. But anyway, she asked the question. She says, because I had a question about how or why different people, big droves, and people in droves were leaving their jobs. And she said, well, I want to know where did all the kids go, because they didn't return back to school. And I said, really? And then I looked into it. But at the time when she asked it, I couldn't really find anything on it until recently. Maybe part of it is people have slowly but surely been taking their children out of school, not just out of fear of their safety, which is one of the things for sure, and that goes across. It's not just African American or Latino or Latinx or whatever. It's all that fear, because it's so many mass shootings and active shooter things at schools, and how things are being handled, or in some cases sadly mishandled. But in the African American community, they were dissatisfied, and rightfully so, of the quality of education and how their kids were being treated or mistreated in public schools. So do you have any thoughts on it you want to share as a parent and as a mother?
I don't have a lot of information about this, but I can truly see where the parents would homeschool. I'm just wondering, what credentials do the parents have to acquire to homeschool their children?
They didn't say.
Okay. Next thing is,
in the videos I looked at,
how is the parents working? If they homeschooling their kids, do they have a schedule set for how to homeschool them? And will they stick to homeschooling? Or are we gonna wind up with a generation of kids that's not educated? Although in the public school system, I don't think they're getting a whole lot of education anyway. From my observation, it was getting bad when my kids was in school, that I had to stay on them all the time and basically teach them myself. And they had to go into class with their information already in hand, because there was no exact follow through. I just hope they can come up with a solution, because we are in a technological age, and these children has to have education. If not, they're going to be out in the street doing any and everything.
That's true. The little bit that they did show, I didn't actually do a lot of research like I normally would do, but they did show different mothers. It looked like a lot of women. I didn't really see any males. I'm sure that they're out there.
I'm sure it is.
Fathers, whatever. It was mostly mothers. A lot of the mothers either work from home. Them themselves were part of that the big resignation. And some actually did just didn't say too much. I know they had to do something for had their own businesses or whatever, but they were saying that once they started it, they put it out there, and there were other mothers in similar situations and similar concerns that joined them, and they took turns, and they went on a lot of field trips, especially in the summer months that we've been in, and tried a different way of, just like with teaching in general, it's different ways, and it's tailored and customized to the children that you're servicing. In this case, they're children. So if their children are the ones in question are visual learners, they made sure they did more of one thing versus sitting down at a desk or a table or whatever inside, and tailored it toward how they learn things. And I think that was one of the things that one of the mothers was saying, that, and I get it, you know, you have a job, we've talked about this before, and you're confined to the constraints of what you know, but this gives you a little bit more flexibility, and you can do the whole lesson outside. Of course, I remember when I worked where I worked, during when we reopened, that was encouraged that you weren't inside as much. When the weather permitted, you were outside due to circulation of air, and so you're not just on top of each other because of COVID. So that was, you could do stuff outside. So that was the parameters of how you taught and how you delivered stuff, and where you did it was more flexible versus you staying inside. And I'm sure other people as well experienced that. And virtual, obviously, too, that was another alternative. So yeah, but they weren't very happy with it. I didn't realize this was it was a whole movement. And I think in retrospect, I'm thinking that's where a lot of those kids went. Because I was like, what do you mean they're not in school? She's like, no, they did not go back. And I was like, well, isn't that against the law? Me and her start asking, well, isn't that against the law? But now the parameters of what, I guess they'd look it up. These are very intelligent women. They look up what are the parameters for homeschooling, right, and so forth and so on. I don't know what that is, but that is definitely something I should look into. When it was on the newscast, previous newscast, the newscaster was sharing some of the things that she had learned about that, and was saying that some that you didn't have to do it from a certain time, Right. You could also do it. You could still work. That's my point. You could still work. You didn't necessarily have to be someone that had their own business or left their job and worked from home or so forth. You could do it. You could go to work, which I would think as a mother, I don't know, you'd be tired, but they were saying you didn't have to do it from this time to this time either, meaning you could do it for short increments of time and still get what you needed done and get your message across. So there's afforded a lot of flexibility.
Right.
You could do it. She even said that there's some mothers and fathers, I'm going to add the fathers, did it on the weekend. They did it on the weekend. So what you didn't cover during the week because you had to work, if you work only weekdays, then you could do a whole thing over the weekend. So it afforded things that you couldn't get with traditional education in the schools. The third thing, and maybe the last thing, I'm not sure, I'll have to read the cues from Ms. Mary, is something else that I've seen on Fox 26, newscast by Isaiah Carey. He has the Isaiah Factor, Uncensored. And he was talking, this is also about education, he was talking about when schools started recently, corporal punishment. There's been a rise and a return of corporal punishment, and there's 19 states. He didn't say what states they were, have all signed off on it. And what do you think, Miss Mary, about corporal punishment coming back? Now, he shared with us, with the people that looked at the televised cast, is that when he was in school, and I have my own stories about corporal punishment in schools, I experienced it coming up. Is that that's what happened in the school system? And he remembered. I don't remember this. He said he was hit with a 2x4. I was like, wow, that's deep. But I could relate to that you had the permission. That I don't remember my mother ever signing anything, Miss Mary signing anything, but when you got out of line and you wouldn't stop, there was some repercussions for that. Do you think, Miss Mary, that this is plausible? Do you think that corporal punishment should come back to schools? And whose responsibility is it? Do you think it lies with the parents? They need to be doing that at home? Or do you think the educators should do it?
Me, myself, personally, I was raised under corporal punishment in school. I did not like it. I thought it was unfair. I'm speaking from a child's standpoint. Children has a tendency to be very aggressive. They know what they can get away with, and if they feel they can get away with it, they're going to do it. I think it should be on both ends, the parents and the school. Okay. I think from what I'm seeing now, the children, quite a few of them is out of control because they know that there's no boundaries, or rules, or I can do what I want to. And like a lot of them want to think that the grown-ups should be afraid of them, and so forth. But on the other hand, there's a two-sided thing. And when I was growing up with the corporal punishment, some teachers abused it. They pushed it too far because they had this authority. So they really targeted some students, and they really actually abused it. So I don't know where did the check and balance come in there. So
okay,
that's my opinion.
So in this same televised thing for this particular expo, the Isaiah Factor Uncensored, he first started with an alderman and some educators who were also not just educators, but they were also parents as well. And they showed a video, and they showed of a young man in Houston, and he was like the Tasmanian devil. The teacher kept trying to talk to him in a way that, was acceptable or whatnot. And he just went around the room. He had a whole episode, what I would call an episode of sorts, to the 100th power. And the other kids started to cower in a bunch, staring at him. He went all around the room, throwing stuff, pushing stuff, cursing, excuse me, and carrying on. And the people that watched it were like, okay, they had seen it, the educators. They said they had seen stuff like that. Excuse me. They had seen stuff like that, and this is what they're dealing with and more. And this particular young man, based on the video, the quality of the video looked like he might have been 10 years old. So I can only imagine if it's high school, if it's any kind of thing, and they're saying they're really having to deal with some things. And then they had what you're saying, they actually just had parents. And then the parents were saying that what would be the parameters of that? Well, what would be the checks and balance? What would be too far?
Right.
What would be too much? What would be allowed? And then it was another lady, she was very clear. She says she didn't want anyone touching her child, only herself, which is understandable. So, but these particular ones that are already participating in there have put out permission slips that the parents, when they reopened the school, came back to school, that they had to sign and stuff like that. Yeah, it could get very out of hand. Now, what I find interesting is that today, what I looked at, and I didn't get to tell Miss Mary that before we start recording, is that I forget what state it was in, but two parents, a father and a mother, said that their special needs son is autistic, and he has some other cognitive issues. I think this was not by permission. They hit him. And the school called the mother. I'm going by what the mother and father said. Called and said that he had got hurt. So of course they were like, oh boy, what happened? And it could be a variety of things that can happen. When they saw their son, they showed a picture on the newscast. It was the color of this book and this. And evidently it was a male, big paraprofessional support staff that hit him, and it was quite visible. It took up half of this area right here. A man with a big hand had whacked him. Now what happened is that something happened, and when you work in this particular field like I have, you're going to encounter behaviors and different things, and I don't know the whole deal with this young man. He looked like he might be in 9 or 10. He did whatever he did, and that happens. That comes with the territory. And then he left. It looks like he was inclusion. It looked like they had a regular ed class, and then he returned to his special ed class. This particular staff member, after whatever happened in regular ed class, and he went back to his room, his special ed, he followed him. The staff member. And I guess he felt some type of way about whatever happened in that initial setting. And then he started to hit the young man. in that area. The cops were called, and they said that they let him go. The school said they let him go, but they did not. They took him out of the setting, out of the class, and then he went on some type of leave is what really happened. Okay, so when school came back, they thought that they had let him go. No, he did 1 week, the week that they went back, and then he quit. And then somehow those parents found out. Now, he didn't work with their son again, but it was not as they said it was. So, there is now, this kind of goes past I'm giving permission for that, but these are the things when things like you're saying could go wrong.
And they usually do. We're not in a perfect world.
Right. So I can tell now that kind of upset Miss Mary. That was not my intention, but yeah, there's some things that need to be worked out if parents knowingly give permission for people to be disciplined. Now, as for the special needs aspect of it, they didn't specify in the Isaiah factor if they're talking about special needs or not. But I know from my own experience, I'm just remembering this now. We had a student, and I wasn't the only one they went to. And their behaviors, like I said, and the mother, we would call and let them know whatever, and the mother sent the next day a belt, her belt that she called, she had a name for it, and she sent it in a bag, and we didn't get it at first when the young man came to school the next day after this phone call, because he'd had a really rough day. And so one of the teachers, I was a support staff, called and inquired about was he supposed to wear the belt. We didn't get it, what the belt was for. So she said what it was for, and none of us participated in that. So I didn't feel comfortable with it, and as far as I'm aware, no one else used the belt. So there are parents that are all for that, and it's not just what you would call, I don't want to use the word regular ed, but that's the only difference, typical and atypical. I think that's what they use now. I didn't feel comfortable with it because there's a very fine line, and it would be very easy to go over that, and then the parent, and then you don't want to hurt. I'll never forget it. And a lot of times what would happen, we would end up going to that and talking about that. Remember when so-and-so sent that belt? I personally don't feel comfortable disciplined. I wouldn't feel disciplined, but I realize that a lot of educators, regular as well as special education, are dealing with a lot of things right now. And I get it. But yeah, that happened to me now that I'm talking about it. And she gave the permission and actually sent what to use that she would use at home. And she elaborated on it when we saw her again. But I kind of was like, no. She kept insisting we keep it because she said she had another one. But no. What do you think about that, Miss Mary?
I think she opened up a bad door.
Okay.
For that. As a parent, you do what you have to, I suppose.
Okay.
Because there's not a lot of support for you as a handicapped child.
Mm-hmm.
But I really don't think with a handicap,
right,
that goes into another category.
Okay.
I don't think they have behaviors, but they have behaviors that they are not able to control.
Mm-hmm.
So to go up there and punch them in the face for doing something, that's not teaching them anything. And to me, that goes in the category of abusing the child. When we were talking about discipline, corporal punishment, I had in my mind as they put it, normal children. I didn't
So
think
what you're saying, the issue of them being, whether they're being regular ed or special needs, is what you're talking about.
Yeah. I don't think they should be given permission to abuse them because they get enough abuse without the parents knowing it.
Okay, so in this regard, this parent, let's use the one I just told you about. So the mother, we told her what happened, what occurred or happened. She sent the belt that she would use, not necessarily punching him in the face, but she said what she would do, which would be, and she was African and still is African American, and told us that it would be okay to spank him, not necessarily punch him in the face.
Do you think some people out there would differentiate between being overly, even if they didn't, the parents didn't give them?
Do you think that people with special needs need to be disciplined, not in the school, not in the day program, at home? Do you think parents of special needs?
I think in some cases, depending on the case, I think in some cases, yes.
They should. Okay. So you don't think that it's necessarily abuse if your child is special needs and they've done something, and let's say your other child that does not have a disability has done the same thing. So they've done the same thing, and you gave the spanking to the other sibling or child who does not have has special needs. They both did the same thing. Who gets the weapon? The whooping. Who gets the whooping? Okay. So you're not against that.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't think that just because they're special needs that they are
placed on the pedestal somewhere? No.
They are, exempt from it.
But you're talking about a parent
right.
doing it and a person that's working for a salary doing it.
Right.
And you got to remember, some of the people go into special needs or school, period, for the wrong reasons. And they have psychological problems and so forth. They're not even equipped to work with special needs.
I get what you're saying, but where I'm going with it is discipline. We're going to leave about the school and the day program and the workshops. We're talking about just in general. Do you think, in your opinion, you're very qualified to say so, do you think that people with special needs should be given discipline in that way, spankings or whoopings or discipline, just like other children? If you have, like I said before, you have two children or other children, one is special needs and one is not, and they do the exact same thing, and you gave the whooping to the one that, so you're nodding your head yes. So we're gonna leave that topic behind, because some people, like you're saying, do not believe in disciplining them in that way. Do you think it's wrong to do that?
Yeah. Okay. I think they should. Were you saying you wanted to get as normal as possible and be in a normal setting? So, what message you sending them if they can go over there and do something really bad and they have special needs, and then your other child over there is,
and they had the capability? So you're also saying they had the capability of understanding that what they did was wrong. So I'm just gonna help it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So the thing with the school system doing these things, it's very iffy. So from what I'm deriving, and you let me know what the point is that you think that they should not do it in the schools. They should not do it outside the home. Discipline of that nature, physical discipline, like how the nuns whacked my fingers when I was misbehaving.
And I didn't like it at all.
Okay. I was misbehaving now.
I know.
Yeah.
But it's different when you say the mother and your fingers is whacked.
Mm-hmm.
And the nuns did it because I had you there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking they were from a Christian standpoint. I didn't know they still believed.
That was corporal punishment.
Right. No, I did not appreciate that.
Okay. Well,
they could have sent me a note and told me what you did, but you're always doing something.
That's right. Even in the regular schools, not necessarily, it doesn't have to do with like using profanity and and this was regular as well as Catholic. The Ivory soap, I guess, is the freshest and the purest. So I know what Ivory soaps taste like, because in the Catholic as well as the public school, they had to break out the bar of Ivory soap for me. So those were the days of my generation, as well as not only the corporal punishment, meaning what I said, giving spankings or, whacking you on the knuckles. There was also books. I had my arms out and they'd stack the books on the arms. So I come from a generation of corporal punishment. So yeah, it did exist, and those are the thoughts of me and Miss Mary. Is there anything else you want to say, Miss Mary?
No, I think I've had it.
Had enough of that corporal punishment. Okay.
Yeah, it's a tricky subject.
It is, but it harkens to what people are having to deal with on both sides.
Yeah.
And that is coming to the point where they feel that young people are lacking something, and they're searching, trying to help them, but it is very iffy. Now, this is the thing that I was trying to remember while we were talking, and then I'll let you go, is that it was one lady, when they interviewed the parents, it was two mothers, and one of them said, what if a child is acting out and putting on a scene like the young man in the video that they showed previously, but he's acting out because he's hungry? Would spanking him be the solution to that? Wouldn't it be better, which makes sense, before they go there, that would be like if they said the last resort. They said that before the segment even started. Finding out what the source of the behavior is, and then that's another factor there.
Right.
If they're hungry, if they are having issues at home that involves abuse or other things that they're dealing with, find out what the source is first, and then it's like with anything, find out what the source is, and then if you can, be as diplomatic in giving out whatever. I don't want to say punishment because it has negative connotations to it of how to address it. Maybe that'd be the best way. All right, thank you, Miss Mary.
You are welcome, Miss April.
A prayer for God to direct our next steps. Dear Lord, thank you for each day that you have given us. Thank you for creating our minds to dream. You designed each of us with a need to create, to develop, to dream of new possibilities. Thank you for giving us the freedom to make our own plans. There are times, Lord, when I don't know which decision to make. Your word says that you determine my steps. Thank you for the freedom that brings to my mind and heart. You are a good God, and you desire good things for me. As I make my plans for today and tomorrow, and as I step forward in faith, guide my steps, Lord, where you want me to go. Turn me away from the direction of anything that I make plans for that will take my eyes off of you. In Jesus' name, amen. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for listening to Teachable Moments with April. If you did enjoy this episode, I invite you to come right back to check out my podcast and my other episodes. Don't forget to listen, add us to your favorites, and support by clicking on the link in the description. As always, be blessed and be well. Until next time.